Calvin Morris, and I'm here today to talk to you about Doctor Who Extremis. And I'm going to get straight into it because I haven't got a lot of time. So, first thing I'd like to say about this episode is that this is essentially the first part of a multi-part story. So it's essentially Act 1 of a 3-act play. And it's very difficult to judge how the rest is going to play out. So, even though this is an episode in and of itself, it's much a part of a much larger story. So it's the first act of a 3-act play, and provided that the final act doesn't let us down, I can say right now this is some brilliant stuff. I like this episode a lot. There's a lot going on that I really enjoyed. Let's get into talking about the episode. So the first thing that I can honestly say that I really liked was the opening dialogue between the executioner, the Doctor, and Missy. Mainly because the setup was that a Time Lord was being executed, and right the way throughout the opening tease you were getting the impression that it was going to be the Doctor that was being executed. And it's only right at the end where they do this little switch where you realise that it's Missy that's being executed and not the Doctor. And I thought that was it was a little bit cunning, but I thought it was a very clever way of doing it, and a very clever way of sort of swapping it around. It was obviously set a long time ago, and the Doctor's been told to guard the body for 1,000 years. That's part of his role as the executioner, is that he has to guard the body, makes a promise to guard the body. Next we got the Vatican seeking out the Doctor's help, and this was again another display of good writing. What I liked about what happened here was that they were taking something real world and applying it to sci-fi, which is always a nice thing to do. It gives it some sort of grounds for reality. But what actually happened during the writing and the exposition going on in this scene was similar to what Stephen Moffat does with Sherlock, in that they send a character in with a situation and ask for the Doctor's help, in much the same way that a customer or a client would walk into Baker Street to see Sherlock and Watson. And this is a similar sort of setup, and I liked it a lot because it added a bit of gravity to the scene when they were telling you that, you know, they after reading the Veritas, they chose hell and damnation. And that really adds weight to it when you've got these devout Catholics that decide to commit suicide, and that tells you a lot. There's a lot in that one sentence that tells you what they're up against. So yeah, it was very much like a Sherlock setup, but they added so much weight to the seriousness of the situation by making it the Vatican, by making it the Cardinals, by making them choose suicide. Considering they develop faith. So yeah, the fantastic story setup, fantastic plot writing, that right there. It's very difficult or it's very rare to see that, particularly in modern sci-fi, when only one sentence can add so much severity to the story. Now I want to talk about the TARDIS translation circuit. Because it's come to my attention, and I noticed it during the episode myself, whereby the Pope is talking, and he's talking in Italian, and you can't understand him, and the Doctor can't understand him, and you think the TARDIS translation circuit is broke or something. So to me, I simply put that down to the fact that, and if you haven't seen the episode, I don't know why you're watching this review, but I just simply put it down to the fact that it was a simulation, and nothing else really. It was just the fact that, you know, a simulation can't account for everything, and it doesn't know how the TARDIS fully works, so some things get left out. But then we move on to seeing Bill on a date, and another thing that I found really good about this story setup and the way the story was done, and I don't overlook it, is the music. Because the music, I felt, was quite good, and it's noticeable in this scene whereby, because this episode is set inside a simulation, the musical cues and the musical scores were very much like sort of Tron. If you listen to it, it's got that sort of synthetic rhythm going on. So yeah, I like that a lot. And then you had the scene with Nardole, when Bill goes into the bedroom and, you know, she's sort of shouting at the Doctor about, you know, when I'm on a date, you don't bring the Pope into my bedroom, which is a conversation that very rarely happens. And then you got Nardole having a conversation with the Doctor and talking about, you know, why don't you tell her you're blind? And I thought this was a real good scene. I thought it was a good setup. Given that Nardole has come into a bit more of his responsibilities and isn't just there for just the odd, you know, funny line here or there, he's actually serving a purpose. He's actually delivering a good, solid performance as the guy who is, you know, I take my responsibility seriously, and so should you. And yeah, very, very nice stuff. Bringing in as well CERN and the Vatican, and the Doctor pointing out the fact that, you know, physicists and the religion, the Catholics, and all religions, in fact, it wasn't just, they did say that, even though it was the Vatican, they said that the cardinals said that it's across all religions, not just the Catholics. It's the world. And then when CERN, they bring CERN into it, and it's like CERN sends back the email saying, you know, pray for us. It's it was like, now you really understand how severe the situation is, and it was all building to the severity, the absolute, the implications of what's about to happen. And again, provided this pays off in the third act, then, because I got a feeling the second act is going to be where everything just falls apart and everything is, you know, sort of, that's probably when maybe the invasion begins. But it's going to be where everything sort of collapses. It should be anyway, and then the start of third episode should be where, you know, they're getting out of a situation to get back in to resolve. But that's for the future. As it is right now, what we saw here was a very, very good, very, very strong setup. There's a nice couple of little comedy moments in this episode as well, with Nardole being the badass, as it were. But there was also this one little moment which still makes me chuckle, is this moment whereby Bill says, well, one of the cardinals read the Veritas and lived. And then bang! It's like, oh well. And just that little moment just absolutely made me chuckle. It's something that you would see out of something like Johnny English or something. It's one of those sort of little comedy tricks, the timing. Also as well, the fact that the Doctor ends up borrowing from his future, and he's explaining that, you know, he's going to get his eyesight back temporarily, but there are going to be implications going forward from this. He doesn't know what the implications are from borrowing from his own future, and I'm wondering whether or not that's going to be an implication that we're going to see in this regeneration, or it's going to be for something for future Doctors, maybe. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that with this, he's going to be trying to tie things up now with the Capaldi run, and I think that it's going to be something that we're going to see towards the end of the series, and I think that it's going to do with the fact that I'm not sure this Doctor's ever going to get his eyesight back, or if he does, it's going to be a temporary thing, and we're going to see more of this Doctor crumble before he regenerates. So yeah, I like that. The makeup in this episode was fantastic. The makeup for the decaying cardinals, or whatever they were, these supposed to be alien things, the corpseification, the mummification of those creatures, it just looked fantastic. It was just really, it was unsettling and quite disgusting. to look at. Very unnerving. Good creepy bad guys. I liked it. I thought that was very well done. Also as well, I like the fact that when they do the shadow test later on in the episode, I like the fact that they explain how they find out that they're part of the simulation, and this led me to the idea or getting the feeling that this episode felt, there were elements of this episode that felt like the Mind Robber, or it felt like the War Games, you know, the early Patrick Troughton stuff. So it seems that right now this Doctor Who is borrowing a lot from earlier Doctors, and it seems to be borrowing from the best of the earlier Doctors as well. So it's got that sort of feel to it, just updated. Instead of it being like a board game, it's more like a computer game. They've just sort of updated it for modern storytelling, and I really enjoyed it. I really thought it was a very, very good good way to tell the story, that these aliens are practicing in these simulations to try to conquer the Earth, but obviously they keep coming across this Veritas setup where they've programmed these simulations so sophisticated that they've become self-aware and are aware of what they are. And of course when that happens with the Doctor, he is still the Doctor, but even though he's a simulation of the Doctor and he understands that, they still end up with a Doctor Who story where this simulant Doctor ends up contacting the real Doctor. In fact, I love the line where he just says, "You always do whatever somebody does when the world is in danger. Call the Doctor," and he sends the email via the sonic glasses. Still not a fan of the sonic glasses, okay? I understand and I get that no, I'm not a fan of them. I'm just not a fan of them, I'm sorry, okay? They're a pair of bloody shits. Okay? It's a really crap prop. It's the end of it. They haven't done anything fancy with them. There's no lights on them, or there's no circuitry, or they haven't tried to do anything clever with the glasses. They're just a pair of bloody shades that you can buy from the market. They're a terrible prop. I'm sorry, I hate them. But aside from that, that put it aside, when he sends the email, the Doctor receives the email, and we're off and running. Now again, I also like the fact that we know what's in the vault. That's an important thing as well, to get that out of the way, because I'm glad it didn't tie us over to the end of the show. I'm glad that it is done and dusted and we know it's Missy. And I thought that it was good in a way that it was Missy, because a lot of people had been speculating that it was the Missy Master, you know, maybe it was John Sims Master or whatever. But people had already sort of caught on to the fact that that's probably what it was. And I thought that, you know, to do that was quite good. That the fact that it was what you thought it was. Because a lot of people, how can I put it, it's sort of like a second guess kind of thing. You know, it's not going to be Missy because that'd be too obvious. So what could it possibly be? And when it turns out to be Missy, you're like, well, that's what I thought it was, but I didn't think it would be because that was too obvious, and yet it was. So yeah, it was kind of like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's obvious. If it tells the story and it adds to the story, then so what? You know, and we've done now with this part of the series. We're halfway through, and we're on a build-up now to the end of Peter Capaldi's Doctor. And I think going forward now, we're going to have these 3 episodes here, which are going to take us to episode 8, to get that out of the way. And then you've got what, 4 episodes then after that, which is probably going to be another end run arc. So yeah, I liked this episode a lot. I thought there was plenty in this episode. It was asking questions about, you know, is execution the right thing to do? When is execution the right thing to do? When do you determine that something is alive with AI? Because these simulations, they all believed that they were alive. They didn't know any different. To challenge the notion of what is reality. There's a lot of good stuff going on in this episode. Very, very likeable. Let's just hope the other two parts stand as strong as this, and we'll end up with, again, another good run of Doctor Who. It baffles me that these people can make an episode like Sleep No More and then turn out stuff like this. Fantastic. Anyway, that's what I thought of Extremis. Very good start to a 3-chapter story. Very well done. Lots to like in this episode. Absolutely lots to like in this episode. Yeah. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Extremis. But until next time, I'll see you later, guys.